When this building opened in September 2019, it was packed. It was the talk of the town, at least for folks who are interested in architecture and sustainability. Everybody wanted to come here to see this regenerative building that had been opened in the hot, humid South. What's a regenerative building, they wondered. So they came here. They came here for events. They came here for tours. They came here just to see it. And then when classes started in spring 2020, the students came. And then 3 months later, everything stopped. We had the COVID disruption, and this building went from being buzzy to empty. Everything became empty. The streets were empty, the stores were empty. There was this weird pause that none of us had experienced before. And that pause just kept going. So we asked people who were familiar with the building about what their thoughts were. Their thoughts on the pause and what they had observed, what they felt the new normal should be after human activity returned, and how the Kendeda building could influence what that new normal could and should be. So, here are their thoughts.
As we think about celebrating a return to campus, and as I very eagerly await the moment to return to my work in the Kendeda building, I think it's really important that we stop and ask ourselves, what aspects of life before this pandemic are better left in the past? And how can Georgia Tech as an institution leapfrog some of those old wasteful ways and jumpstart our path onto our low carbon future?
I think what's being reinforced here is that we all know that the Earth's climate is changing faster now than any other period in the history of modern civilization. And many sectors of the economy are going to grow, not shrink. And I want to emphasize that. There's a lot of growth to be had in the near and long term related to climate change and now health. So the message that I'd like to share with everyone is that the design and the responsiveness of the built environment is the basis for creativity, invention, and entrepreneurship. Adversity is the foundation of invention.
Professionally, what this time has taught me, in designing and building high-performance homes, especially, is that the home is not only a place to be, but to be productive, and to consider that in the design.
I think that's what makes the Kendeda building really special, where the Kendeda building is more of a hybrid building that is almost half nature and half human construction. What we see within this building is this integrated design and open space combined with this theme of biomimicry found throughout the building that makes it different and sets it apart from these customary buildings.
In light of the pandemic, I think there will be a demand for design strategies that promote human health. As we all leave quarantine, we'll be more aware of our surroundings. Can I socially distance? Where can I wash my hands? And do I have access to fresh air? The Kendeda Building for Innovative Sustainable Design, as well as the Living Building Challenge, have always taken these factors of human health as basic tenets of sustainability. The operable windows in the Kendeda building, which are throughout the entire building, provide cross and stack ventilation. The direct outdoor air system still provides fresh outdoor air when the windows are closed. There are also opportunities to move classes outdoors to promote social distancing while also being in an open air environment. There is a lab on the roof garden, as well as informal learning spaces under the porch. There is flexible furniture in both spaces, as well as throughout the interior of the building. This flexible furniture will allow Georgia Tech to reconsider their class sizes, as well as how to socially distance. Social distancing and other measures may wane as we continue to flatten the curve, but the way we view buildings may change forever.
Wouldn't it be great if the ventilation rate inside a building was a transparent data point like the interior temperature or humidity? Knowing what you know now, would you be willing to design a building without operable windows or work in one?
As an environmental health and safety professional, I'm just excited and amazed at how people are actually getting it. They're getting it how important environmental health and safety is, how it relates to building, how it honestly relates to life. This building was designed for maximum flexibility because we do not know what the future holds. The wall that I'm currently standing on actually opens up and allows you to go outside. The idea of flexibility extends to classrooms as well as conference space in the building. In each room, we have the capabilities and have equipment to provide remote learning, which at this point would be standard for everything that we're enduring now.
The COVID pandemic has revealed both how fragile everything is as well as how resilient our species can be. With buildings being one of the most negative contributors to the environment, we must expand the focus on building responsibly. We know the answer: the resilience and self-sufficiency of regenerative design. Places like the Kendeda building have already shown us the path. Buildings should be self-sufficient, not just to reduce emissions, but to conserve resources. They can support human health, not just for increased productivity, but to reduce exposure to chemicals of concern. Our new normal can be regenerative design that supports environmental and human health.
With regards to the environment, I feel like that's the real silver lining to this experience, has been to see how quickly we can affect air and water quality.
But with everyone staying at home, definitely transportation has gone down, which has reduced carbon emissions worldwide. I was talking to my mom this morning, and she mentioned that people living in North India can now see the Himalayas, which were obscured from view due to pollution for the last 30 years. As phase 1 came by, me and my friends went fishing to the lake, and we thought we'd be the only ones coming out of quarantine doing something along those lines. But it looks like everyone had the same idea. The parking lot at our local lake was actually overflowing, which is the first time I've seen that happen in 18 years. We all took nature for granted. We didn't realize how much we missed being outside and being surrounded by nature until we were forced to be indoors.
I am sitting in the long linear park that extends from kind of east of Midtown all the way to Decatur. This has been my family's oasis for the past couple of months now. You know, my husband and I, obviously, when we moved here, we moved here for this place because of the proximity to it. But we could have never imagined what it was going to mean to be so close to a neighborhood park like this. As Atlanta becomes an increasingly dense and urban city, we can't underestimate the importance of these small neighborhood parks. It is not lost on us that this is a privilege and that not everybody has immediate access to a place like this. And I think that's something that we as a community need to reassess and prioritize. Thinking about our campus, you know, starting with the Kendeda building, but certainly with the Eco Commons that are currently in construction, that's where we're headed. We are prioritizing our community's ability to get out and to take a breath.
So one thing that I find really inspiring about the Kendeda building is its frequent incorporation of green space. And we also have the entire building itself that follows the slope of the little hill that it's sitting on, and that it's built to respect the natural flow of water, the natural way the sun moves around us, and also how plants just grow about in our area. We should figure out how we are serving ourselves and nature when we build something new, and whether there's actually a need to build something. Can we use existing materials instead of making something from scratch? Can we recycle? Can we repurpose something else?
This pandemic has been devastating for our economy. There has just been a lot of job loss. There's still a lot of construction. We're still building things. We're still improving our infrastructure. In fact, it's an opportunity to improve infrastructure. Knowing that, how do we get more local jobs, more local representation in our construction process? Through the net positive waste imperative is a requirement to salvage construction materials, take them from those garbage from another project being demolished, repurpose them and save them as new, extending their life cycle. That salvaged economy, not only does it create jobs from the folks who have to collect those materials from the demolition and then carefully maintain that, we then have the local jobs that install them into new projects.
This pandemic has created a panic in my household because we are bottled water drinkers. And it made me think about, why do we rely so much on bottled water when we have water out of our taps every day? It makes you question, why do we depend so heavily on bottled water? However, there are times where even the tap water is not great. There are times when there are boil water advisories, there's things that's going on with the local tap water that causes us not to have regular tap water. When I connect that to the Kendeda building, I think about that once we get our water permit, we're able to collect rainwater from our solar system, and we can take that water and make it potable water.
I'm a water treatment expert, and I've noticed actually how city infrastructure has impacted drinking water resources. This right here is a water treatment skid, and what it's doing is harvesting rainwater and changing it and creating drinking water, and in return creating redundancy. When I think about this and what it's doing right here for this one building, I think about, well, what if it was on a larger scale? What if it created water? We had one of these in hospitals, in central buildings, in schools, in small communities, even large communities.
Now that we've been sheltered in place at home, we flush the toilet a lot. Our water bill has increased significantly just because we're at home more. In the residential market, a toilet uses about 2 gallons of water, fresh, drinkable water per flush. Why do we use fresh, drinkable water to flush a toilet? It makes no sense. You can build a home and you can put a composting toilet in a home and use about a tablespoon's worth of water every time we flush.
We cannot continue to ignore it when complex issues like climate change and pandemics force us to take action as they threaten our survival. And with a few more feet added to the sea level, Miami and most of Florida may not exist in a few generations. That is a future I do not want to realize. Miami is my hometown. I've lived here for the majority of my life now. And in addition to the environmental impact that we have had, it is unfortunate to see the disproportionate effect that COVID-19 has had in this city, where different regions, I think in no coincidence due to the economic factors that exist, have been disproportionately affected.
And now we're really seeing that there's a lot of people's jobs that can be done from home.
Analysis now shows that in April, the emissions reductions from the virtual halt to all flight travel for Georgia Tech amounted to about 97% drop from 2019 to 2020. And of course, this is a massive emissions drop worth hundreds of thousands of tons of CO2, a powerful greenhouse gas, really accounting for as much as tens of thousands of annual carbon footprints for the average American. That's a lot of CO2. I don't have any easy answers about what a flying less future for Georgia Tech might look like, but I don't think we should get trapped in a full-throated embrace of the wasteful ways that we were flying before versus no flying at all, which is some of the choices that I've been making lately, but rather think about a strategic middle ground, something that makes sense, something that has broad support across the community, that recognizes a role for in-person gatherings and meetings to take place in our future for our students, faculty, and staff, but also something that recognizes our important role and responsibility in reducing emissions at scale as we can.
Another thing that I think we've kind of seen in lockdown is that centralization isn't necessarily the most efficient thing, especially with food production. We've been talking about this for a while, buy local, support local farmers, but we're also seeing that maybe we can take it a little bit farther than that. For instance, my family's always had a vegetable patch of some type, but we've pretty significantly increased its size this year, and I think a lot of families have been doing something similar where they've been moving their food production as local as their own backyard. And I think moving forward that is something that we can really continue to do. Candida is a pretty good example of that as well, with all of the edible bushes and plants around the building, and the petals about local food production, as well as the honeybee farms up on the roof. I think there's a lot of ways that people can kind of look to Candida as an example for a much more localized way of food production moving forward. And that is something that we can really start to incorporate into our new normal.
This pandemic has taught me about food insecurity and how dependent we are on grocery stores and meat packaging plants. We are now finding that without our local grocery stores and meat packaging facilities, food would be hard to find. The Candida building sets a great example because the building focuses on community gardens, local agriculture, and the reduction of meat by standing behind sustainable practices and plant-forward diets. I think the new normal is a campus that focuses on our ability to create community through gardens and through the sharing of food that we can produce and grow on our own. In the end, we can probably reduce the demand for meat, the amount of methane gas released from livestock, and emissions from delivery trucks. I think this could help us realize that if we take care of the earth has a way of providing and taking care of us in return.
As we move into a new normal, it's important to remember that small actions can have big impacts when a group of people work toward a common goal. The other component of this is the power of community itself. And it's important to remember the role of the built environment in strengthening communities and helping create community identity. And the Candida building fosters a special community on the Tech campus. The building is really unique because it takes such a strong position relative to sustainability and resiliency. And in the way the building itself has a value system that helps impact, shape, and inspire the community that the building fosters with all the people who spend time there. When we all go back to work or school, we should remember that each of us individually have great power to lead the way to a healthier and more resilient future. And when we join in with the many communities that we're part of, that impact just expands exponentially and is magnified beyond belief.
I think that a new normal is not necessarily a bad thing, and that we've been doing a lot of things in the past that we're learning now are maybe not necessary and not the best way to do things.
Regenerative design is a great paradigm to base our new normal on. And the Candida building is timely and exemplary in demonstrating that as a society, we have a choice in how we respond to crises, and that we can tweak our habit loops for more desirable outcomes.
It may have been built to inspire the building industry, but I think the Candida building has inspired a lot more people.
You've had an opportunity to hear from a diverse group of people about their observations during the COVID pause, their hopes for the new normal, and how they think the Candida building can influence the new normal. When you think about how your communities are going to come out of this and what the new normal is going to be for your communities, what I think is important to remember is that we don't have to pit economic development against the environment. We don't have to pit the environment against helping people advance. Everything is interconnected. Our challenge is to get to a new normal that uplifts everyone. To find out more about the Candida building, please visit our website. And if you ever find yourself in Atlanta, please come and have a visit. We'd love to host you.